So this
Yes, after
actually makes
all,
sense. So this
it
makes
is the new
sense.
year. So this, we can't just assume that everyone has watched or listened to our extensive back catalog of episodes. So this is the Re-Education Camp podcast. My name is Colin Miller, being joined alongside, as always, by the incomparable, the talented, the lovely Ms. Karen O'Toole. And Karen, here we are. First podcast of 2024, year of our Lord, year of the Wood Dragon. If
The
you
wood dragon,
follow Chinese
yes.
astrology, which you should, I assume that you do. I mean, I do. Why wouldn't you? And we're all filled with all sorts of hopes and dreams and maybe a little bit of fear sprinkled in just for good measure. And what I don't even know how to start this off. Where should we go with our first episode of 2024?
Well, I like that you said dreams because I feel as if you're really motivated more by nightmares. And you share these with me a little bit that I should be very concerned that this could be 2024 could be my final year. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about this disease that I know the World Economic Forum's meeting talking about disease X, but there's another mouse disease or
Well,
some kind of what's going on with that?
I think that that is what Disease X is ultimately going to be. I think they've
Okay.
got a mouse pox that has been brewed up in a lab somewhere because now I'm no scientist or virologist or person of medicine by any stretch of the imagination. However, I think that the animals that respond to drugs the way that humans do, I think it's pigs and mice. I think those are the two animals. So
Okay.
allegedly, they whipped up this mouse pox, which has like a 100% fatality rate. So if something like that were to leak, I mean, that could be devastating. We're talking about, oh, I don't know, 30% of the global population just wiped out if there were to be some sort of mouse pox epidemic to occur. But I'm praying to God that that doesn't happen because I would just like to experience some semblance of normalcy. And I mean that with in relation to a lot of different areas in my life. I just want some normalcy at this point. Do you know what I mean? Don't you want some
Yes.
normalcy, Karen?
Yes. Yeah, I understand. I think I go back and forth a lot between like recognizing that everything can collapse in a moment's notice, but also just like, I'm just working on my house, trying to get things done, worrying about my 401k and my IRA and where am I going to go on vacation? I get it. I get it. Like there's that trapeze wire act that we do where especially after COVID, I think a lot of people realize like, well, everything could just be taken away from you in such a short matter of time. We have a war happening in Europe where, Germany they just had these plans leaked from the Bild magazine where they were talking about imminent war and all the plans that they have in Sweden. They were warning the population about war, the war in the Middle East and what's going on with the Houthis and our US Navy and the UK Navy as well. And yeah, it's kind of alarming. Like there's part of you that always just feels a little on edge. And I think that there are people out there, God bless their souls, that just don't know about any of this. And I salute those people. I really truly wish that I could join the
I
ignorant
look down upon those
masses.
people, if you want me to be honest. And and listen, I know that we're okay. So we have a special episode coming up for Valentine's Day.
Yes,
I'm just
yeah.
gonna put that out
Just in a
there.
couple weeks, like 3 weeks,
Yeah,
Valentine's episode.
but there's a brief anecdote that I must share because when things are on my mind, I have to get them out. So just to peel back the curtain, I mean, you know a lot about this, Karen, but I had a visitor recently over to my home, a little date. She wanted to come here, which was kind of strange, but obviously I'm still here. She had no ill intentions, and she,
Yes, you survived. You lived to tell the tale.
yeah, but I always like to whenever I start talking to somebody new, I always like to subtly interject um, relevant topical things, even if it's just saying something like, there's a lot going on in the background that the general populace is not aware of. A lot of crazy shit's happening, and the response that I got from this person who was very lovely, I had a lovely time, but I'll never see her again. But the response that I got was um, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but oh, I just like to live in the moment, yada, yada, yada. That's the wrong answer. Live in the moment. What do you mean live in the I mean, that's a very convenient thing. That's almost like those people who don't text because they're so blessed that they don't have to. Do you know what I mean? Could you
Wait.
imagine?
So some people just don't text? Like, they're just like, "Oh,
I
I
have
don't
a friend
text."
who I've known for like 20 years now. The only way to get in contact with this guy is via email. And by email, I don't mean like he has like the Gmail app on his smartphone. I mean, he's got to be at his desktop computer. Like that's the only way to well, that and a landline. But
How old is he?
he's got to be in his early 50s, I want to say.
Okay, well, yeah, that's not very old in all relative
No.
conversation. You understand? Like it's not like he's in his 80s, like he's in his 50s. Like that's
My dad's
pretty,
going to be 70 next year. And
yeah.
he, I mean, you can't get him off that damn phone. And he's on Instagram and Facebook and X and the
Let's
whole
talk
bit.
about that for a minute. Like the boomers are like more addicted to their phones. And this is actually statistically proven that like the boomers are like just as bad about like social media than the younger generations. But it's so true that like the boomers have latched on to Facebook. They're always like sharing these little things, these little memes and telling these stories or like sharing. My favorite is like I know these people that like share recipes, but they like never cook. They're like I think they're just like subliminally messaging for
Yeah.
people to like make them that food. But yeah, you're right. The boomers are like completely connected to it. But what you were saying about having conversations with people and trying to get a gauge of what they know about what's really happening in the world. Kind of like, are they not woke, but are they awake? Like that's kind of the way I describe it. Like, are you awake? Not woke. Are you awake? Because if you're awake, like, you know that there's a war against the globalists, like, you know who Klaus Schwab is, you know about what's going on with Zelensky, like, you know these things, you know that the food is poison, you know that COVID was probably not, was started in a lab, you know that Fauci needs to be tried for like crimes against humanity. Like you realize these things and you're awake. That's how I describe it. So our question is, are you awake if you're listening? I think when I go into social situations, I try to do the opposite. Like I think because my work revolves around so much of this, I'm like usually trying to turn my brain off from all of it. So what happens to me is kind of the opposite of what happened to you. Like I'll go out and social study. Like I'm with my husband and his coworkers at like a little back, they every year they have like a company picnic. And I'm trying I reel myself in. I try to keep the conversations normal and then I hear one little thing and then or I say one little thing and then the person then it's like then we're talking about this show and we're talking
Yep.
about this and then we're talking about that and it's like, oh, did you, oh yeah, of course I listen to Alex Jones. Do you know that they said this? Did you hear about that? Do you know what's going on with Biden? Do you think Trump's going to do this? And I'm like, and then it's like an hour later I said I was going to leave and my husband's like looking at me. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know how this started. I didn't want to get into this
You
conversation.
overheard something, and the next thing you
Or
know,
it's like
you're
they
talking
pull it
about the
out of me.
GMOs and the
It's
food and the fluoride in the
yeah.
water. And
Yeah, it's like we're fellow travelers. You know what I
I
mean? Like
get
the
it.
communists, like we're just like fellow travelers. And it just comes out somehow. And actually that leads to something we wanted to talk about. I watched Oppenheimer this weekend and a lot of Christopher Nolan's film Oppenheimer. I know a little late to the party, excuse me, but
I'm
doesn't
probably not
matter
going to
because
watch it.
exactly.
I'll
Yeah,
just be
yeah.
honest. I'm probably
It's
not going to
so
watch it. It
long.
looks
My
so
husband,
boring.
yeah, it's boring, and my husband fell asleep. there's some good things about it, but overall, I didn't think it was that great. But I did have some takeaways from it because the greatest part of the conflict in Oppenheimer, like a big part, obviously, you would think that the greatest um like what they're really trying to depict in the film is like the Manhattan Project that Oppenheimer is so famous for, but a lot of the film actually revolves around his security clearance was revoked, or he was trying to renew it and he had to make appeals, and there was like all of this background kind of uh government overreach and kind of like all that intrigue that happened to prevent him from renewing a security clearance. And he goes to these hearings and they bring up his communist past. And, there was all that McCarthyism and HUAC. But I realized watching this where they're pretty much just they're forcing Oppenheimer into perjury. They're forcing Oppenheimer like there's no winning this case. It's a done deal. He knows as he's going into it, they're going to nail him on these little items and destroy his reputation. And I realized that like this is so similar. It's like there was a question back in the McCarthy era. It's like, are you or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? And today it's more or less, are you or have you ever been a MAGA Republican? I mean, like that is where we're
Pretty
at.
much.
It's the McCarthyism of today is MAGAism. Like we're at a part where if you have any relations or any conversation or shared something on Facebook or said something to someone, you're a fellow traveler of MAGA, or, if you have any questions about certain things that the government does or what's Joe Biden's doing, it's like even if you're a reluctant Trump voter, like I'm a reluctant Trump voter, like I'm not going to follow Donald Trump into some kind of revolution.
You
Like,
see, this year I'm all in. Like I feel I've been watching like every speech. I watched his last two New Hampshire speeches live because I mean, what else am I going to do on a Saturday night other than turn on Trump in New Hampshire? And there's such a buzz in the air right now. I think that he is more popular now than he was in 2016 and
wow.
2020. I truly believe that. And it's almost kind of amazing because if you think about it, when this whole election cycle started in 2021, even 2022, he was being talked about. People were kind of over him. That's the
Yeah.
vibe that I got. And at that point, DeSantis was considered to be
The future.
the future. And now I literally, before we got on here, I just watched his video endorsing Donald Trump, formally suspending his campaign. I don't know if you saw that yet.
Wow, no, this is breaking news that you're reporting to me. I'm like, "Oh, shoot, I should probably put that on the website," but,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, my cousin sent it to me.
Oh, really?
I wasn't even
Thank you.
aware. Yeah.
Wow, we are pathetic.
Yeah, thank
In
you,
my
Shauna, for
defense,
that bit of.
I was not home, so I didn't know what was going on, but thank you, Sean. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you,
I
Shauna.
was out for Thai food with my parents.
Ooh,
I got the
love Thai
drunken
food.
noodles. It was good.
Yeah.
Little.
I am kind of surprised that DeSantis is thrown as but we still have Nikki Haley, Never Nikki, coming up the ranks, and wouldn't that be crazy? Like, that would scare the heck out of me if she somehow pulled off
Oh my god.
this the Republican nomination. Like,
Well,
that
that's their
would
plan because in a lot of these blue primary states, they are having Democrats register as Republican. Even in New Hampshire, in that Republican primary, you don't have to be a registered Republican in order to vote. You could be a Democrat and vote in that primary. That's my understanding. Now,
yeah,
I've
not
always
here
been
in
in favor.
Pennsylvania.
No, Pennsylvania
Not
is
in
not an open
Pennsylvania.
primary state. I'm
Yeah.
fine if you're an independent. You're not affiliated
Yes.
with any party and you want to vote in the Democratic primary or the Republican primary. Like go ahead, but I don't think that you should be able to belong to one of the big parties and then vote in the other party's primary. And I think that's how New Hampshire is set up, which is
Matt,
odd.
I actually am a registered Democrat.
I was for a
So
while to vote for Bernie
so
because I didn't want to work.
so are there even going to be now that Kennedy is Williamson still gonna be on the Democratic ticket, then I could go vote for her
Marianne
against
Williamson?
Biden.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Is there a Democratic prime? I didn't think there was. I thought it was canceled.
I I think that it's probably canceled, but I guess it depends on the state. Like maybe it's up to the state to decide, but isn't that pathetic? Like as a registered Democrat, I do not want Joe Biden to be the candidate on the Democratic ticket. Could I just say that emphatically for 90% of Democrats? Like we'd prefer to not have Joe Biden run again, but nonetheless, there
I
he
think it'll be
is.
Michelle Obama. I do. I think
You do think it'll be Michelle
yeah.
Obama?
I've been saying that for a while now. It seems to me that the writing's on the wall. He's Biden is going to make some sort of announcement, probably sometime in March. I think that's the latest they could do it.
Everyone believes that they will wait until there's surely the nomination, like the actual electoral process is over for the nomination. Joe Biden, becomes the nominee and then they can kind of escort him. I imagine like back in the day, like you'd have those theater shows and they would always, and a lot of times there's some cartoons and they would like pull out that hook and they would take them off the stage. Like that's what they're gonna
Yeah,
do to
yeah.
Joe, like
Yep.
throw him off the stage. But like, the interesting thing about Biden too is that I for the longest time just assumed that he was like you just imagine him as this old guy eating ice cream and he's just a simpleton. He's just like silly old man. But I have to give credit to Miranda Devine of the New York Post. I heard her in an interview, and she said that that's surely not a lot of people have dementia or have senile, become senile. And if they were a kind person, they continue to be a kind person. But if they were not a kind person and they were a nasty person, they only become more nasty as they become more senile. And I actually believe that Joe is probably a really nasty old person behind the scenes. He's
He
kind of
seems
like,
like it. He seems like a mean
yeah,
old man.
yeah. Like I don't, and I have to, like I said, I give Divine credit for that because I didn't have that perspective. But when she said it, like he's probably much more likely to snap at his underlings. Like I think that they don't want him out in the public as much as he is, but he demands because he's the president that he gets to be out in the public more often. I don't know if you saw that he visited Pennsylvania. Uh,
Didn't you get stuck in traffic or
I
something
got stuck.
somewhere?
Yeah, I got stuck in traffic, and he showed up at this coffee place, and he wanted a smoothie, and he was like $6. Like he was shocked how expensive this smoothie was, and it's like it's Bidenomics for you. And that goes back to what you were saying about Trump being so popular because perhaps he is more popular than ever. Because how in the world? I understand if you're very into either partisan politics or identity politics, especially identity politics, I could see you saying that Trump is horrible and like we need Joe Biden and we can't have
What do we
four
need him
more
for
years.
exactly?
Yeah,
To
like I
preserve
understand.
democracy, preserve our
Yeah,
democracy.
like if you're that embedded into it, I can see. But if you're kind of on the fringe, not on the fringe, but you just don't really have a pony in the race. I mean, look at the world. Look at our exit for withdrawal from Afghanistan. Look at what's
Well, that
happening
was planned
in
that way. Come
yeah, but
on.
I'm saying that was under Biden's watch. And look at what's happened with Russia and Ukraine and look what's happening in Israel right now and the economics that have taken place, like the inflation that we're undergoing, just the credit card debt that so many Americans are under and the unaffordability of housing, groceries, et cetera, et cetera. I do believe that is fuel for the fire for Trump because I just saw a thing on Twitter the other day on Joe Biden's official Twitter. It was showing you how many jobs he created, like compared to like it was like Reagan and Bush
I
and
always see
Trump.
his account posting that,
Yeah, and
touting all these
to
jobs
Trump's
created.
credit, he actually did like it did show that Trump created a lot of jobs. And then it shows you Biden creating so many more jobs. And everybody was commenting. Well, yeah, because it was COVID and you told us we couldn't work. Like, you didn't create any jobs. We just resumed the jobs. You can't take credit for giving jobs that were already there. That's not new jobs created.
It
But
reminds me
it
of that
seems,
meme with the guy going like this: "You want to create new jobs? Just take them away and then bring them back." Basically,
yeah. And I think that they want you to believe that the emperor has no clothes, or that the emperor has clothes while the emperor doesn't have clothes. But I think everybody can see, I think a lot of Americans can see clearly, and they're like, yeah, Joe Biden, he has no clothes,
now
like
more than
Joe
ever,
Biden. Yes. Yeah.
more
And
people
like,
now than ever.
yeah. And most people, like, it always says like the Romans vote, it's the pebble in the shoe. Like, we vote based off of what's actually bothering us personally. And I think for a lot of people, when you look at their financial situations, I just don't believe that many people can get behind Joe Biden at this point. I just believe, and look at the border. I mean, the border is constantly on the new. Even Democrats are having to get it, wade the waters and say like, okay, yeah, the border's not. Joe Biden even recently contradicted Mayorkas and said, okay, yeah, no, the border's a little out of control. Even Joe Biden said it. So I just have a hard time believing, like you said, that the average person that doesn't pay attention to too much wants more of what Joe Biden is offering us as Americans.
There's a lot of
But
people who are still in the cult.
of Joe B
Vote
of
just
anti-Trump?
of anti-Trump and the DNC, vote blue no matter who, that whole thing. I think that there's still an alarming amount of voters who are going to vote along the Democrat Party lines, no matter how objectively bad things get. They just cannot swallow their pride and admit that, well, perhaps their reading or their take was a bit off, and maybe the West really is on the verge of a collapse as a result of all of these. A lot of these policies are anti-human policies, quite frankly. Have you seen some of the things that are going on in Germany with the farmers now? They're blocking the
Yes, and
roads there.
France. Yeah, and in
Yeah, in
France as well,
France,
in
because these
Toulouse,
are
yeah.
could you imagine putting restrictions on the production of food,
Real
to
food,
yeah,
real
yeah,
food,
real,
Whole
nutritious,
Foods.
not GMO garbage, actual, farm grown food. We're gonna try and put restrictions on that and make it hard for farmers to do their job under the guise of, well, we're saving the planet. We're
Yeah,
we're
and
saving the environment.
why is it that they are attacking the farmers more than they're attacking the fossil fuels? Do you understand? Like, why are they targeting simple, like, that's really the problem? Like, what about all the plastics? Like, what about, there's so many different industries that are, if you were concerned about climate change, have so much more of a direct issue. Not to mention, like you said about the farmers, but like, what about PepsiCo? You know what I'm saying? Like, why don't you go after PepsiCo? Like, what, like, do we really need more Doritos? Does the earth need more Doritos? Does humanity need more Twinkies? Like, come on. Like, and like you said, we should be concerned when the people that grow our food, like you said, our nutritious food, are being targeted and are speaking up to these levels that we're seeing in Europe.
Have you ever seen, by the way, I've been doing some reading lately because I'm trying to get back into uh, a reasonable diet and lose a few pounds. And I was reading yesterday. I was trying to research like what is really considered like low carb, like what's like regular, not like crazy keto low carb, but like moderate low carb. And I read that it can be 100 to 150 grams of carbohydrates could be considered low carb, because that is considerably less. Like, even if you ate, okay, let's say that I eat 150 grams of carbs a day. Do you know what the recommended amount is that the
By the
United
devil?
States diet. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
USDA,
Yeah. The
US devil.
USDA, they recommend that you consume it's something crazy like 235 to 335 grams of carbohydrates a day. Like that should be a huge part of your diet. I mean, that's by design. I was saying I was using the phrase anti-human earlier. That's anti-human right there, lying to people and saying that they need to be stuffing their face with that. My God in heaven, you're gonna see diabetes on the rise, man. That
Well, how about, like, for the years that they told us, like, "Don't eat butter, eat margarine."
Yeah, right.
Margarine
Yeah, butter's bad.
yeah,
Yeah,
margarine
butter
was,
from the farm, from the cow. No,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
bad for you.
Mar
Eat the shit that was whipped up in a lab.
Margarine was actually developed to, like, grease gears. Like, it was made for, like, motors and for industrial equipment is what
There you go.
margarine was used. It was not I I'm not making that up, you could research it yourself. It was actually developed for industrial purposes, like, on the job. It was not created to be consumed, but for years and years now, I actually was raised by somebody who was like, "No, we eat butter around here, like, we eat real food," and I happen to I mean, I'm not really I would not call myself a I think I eat well. I would not consider myself like anybody should follow what I do, and be it that I have a lot of medical issues, I don't like, I don't sit there and say that, like, I eat the best, but, like,
Follow me right off a cliff.
yeah, follow me. Yeah, follow me to another transplant, but I do have to say that I listen to a lot of this stuff because I do have a really big interest in, like, health and, like, what you should be eating, and I completely agree, like I said, like, I listen to a lot of people, and they've really changed how they feel about meat, how they feel about red meat, like, a lot of well, for example, like, a lot of the research done around red meat, which they tell you is so terrible for you, they don't take into consideration that when people are eating red meat, it's with a bun and french fries and ketchup and mustard, and milkshakes and soda, so then that skews all the
Which I love, by the
research,
way.
which
Like
yeah,
going to the A&W stand or Heisler's and getting like a nice, frothy
yeah,
milkshake with a
mhm,
burger. Oh, that's the best. I love all that. I could eat that every day. But
but you shouldn't, yeah, and like you
yeah,
said,
because you'll
there's
die.
it's
You'll be on my 600-pound life someday.
yes, my favorite show, but 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 to your point is, let us tell you how all these foods are bad for you, so then therefore we can sell you this garbage for you to eat, and it's the same thing that's going on with the farmers. They are targeting our vegetables, our fruits, our all of those items, they're targeting them so they can make them into commodities. So right now, like, they've cornered the market on the chips and the sodas and the crackers and the snacks, and all of that is already become like a commodity that they could buy and sell and make it into something that could be traded on the stock market. Now, don't get me wrong, commodities are traded. You do have you can buy and sell like rice and different things like that. But for the most part, a lot of these don't fall into that. But that's what they're trying to go after. They're trying to make those a commodity. They're trying to basically make those into their own big situation and control what more of our food supply. And it is alarming. And I honestly feel like, my husband, to his credit, we did have a garden last year, but like I am nowhere near prepared. I'm not even kn and we've talked about this in the past. I'm not even not only am I not prepared, I don't even think I want to be prepared. I don't even think I wanna exist
I was
in a
thinking at this
world.
point, like there's very little chance of me learning enough about growing food and gardening in the nick of time to be fully prepared for what's coming. So I was thinking to myself the other day, you know what, dude, you might as well look into one of these, My Patriot Plus supply
Yeah, my
meal.
bitch. They can
Yeah,
sponsor us because 'cause we're
like,
ill
yeah,
prepared.
like a year's worth of food for I don't know how much it is, like 2,000 bucks probably. But I might as well do that at this point than just put them in the closet. So when
Yeah.
what hits the fan, at the very least, I can whip one of those out. And I don't know, what do you pour water over it or something? I don't know how those things are activated.
Is it like an MR maybe it's like an MRE, like they have
That's
for
what
the
I'm thinking in my mind.
military?
Like it's a meal ready to eat, and I'm
Yeah,
just gonna have
yeah.
these stored in the pantry, and I'll be I'll be alive for a full year while society is just breaking down, while anarchy is going on around me.
Like, what's a movie?
The Purge.
The Purge, yeah, that's exactly what
Yeah,
The Purge is going on in Ocala.
exact. Yeah, at least I'll have my MREs, my meals ready to eat for the purge.
Yes.
You know.
I know some places to hide out near my house, that's as good as I got. That's as good as it gets for me, but I mean, we'll just have to wait and see, but, also too, like, I would encourage people I was sitting down for dinner last night, and this commercial you know how these commercials come on YouTube and stuff like that, and they go on for, like, 10 years? Like, you just have the thing on in the background, and then suddenly you'll have this commercial on for, like, 20 minutes, and it was Apple's virtual reality, device that they have, and so I was talking to my husband about it. I'm like, "So what do you think about, like, virtual reality? Like, what are your thoughts?" Because I feel like I'm just so negative about everything that I sometimes like to shut my mouth for a second and hear what other people have to say.
Yeah.
And I do see the merits of virtual reality in marketing and in retail, because imagine, like, you wanted to purchase something offline and then you could, like, look at it and see it and kinda hold it up to yourself and maybe, like, try it on. I do see or, like, see furniture in your house and see if it would fit. I see the retail benefits of virtual reality, but I personally have, like, no desire to be part of that. Like, I have no desire to spend any time like, even, like, they have, like they'll show you, like, "Look, you can do meetings on Zoom. Instead of doing Zoom, you can do it in virtual reality." I'm like, "Ugh, like, no, thank you." Even when I have my doctor's visits over the video, I always hope that the video stops working, so they just have to call me. Like, I you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, "Can you just call me? Like, I really don't wanna look at you."
Yeah. I
Like, I'm
listen.
like, I
I kind of am of the same mindset of you. However, I'm thinking like, okay, this could be cool for concerts and sporting events if you're into that. For example, like if you can't get tickets to a certain
Yeah, that's a
sold
good
out
point. Yeah,
concert, they could
Eras
have like
tour.
one seat there with a VR setup, and everybody can basically buy tickets to the concert, and they'll put their little headset on, and it'll be like they'll be able to look around and look at the stage. And for that purpose, I think it can be kind of cool. But
That's interesting. That's something I didn't think of. Yeah.
yeah, I mean that was like the first thing I thought of, because I was thinking like, okay, well, how could this be used for something that's not evil, basically? But to make a
Yeah,
long
yeah. I
story
hope I
short,
can see yeah, I just wanna see Roger Waters in
ex-
concert,
exactly
dressed up in a
like
Nazi uniform.
yeah, I can't get to the venue. I want to see this show.
Let's see
If you could
this.
utilize the technology to put me there in the arena so I can watch
Yeah.
Roger Waters do his thing, okay. I
I've seen him in concert actually, but before he not he didn't put any paraphernalia on at that time.
I've never seen him live before, and I am a Pink Floyd fan.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
probably more of
yeah.
a David Gilmour fan, honestly, just because he is the guitar and the voice of
I
Pink
just
Floyd.
I just wanted to throw in because of that outrageous moment that he had recently, but which I still don't really understand. I don't maybe he's like one of those he's like becoming Joe Biden, like he
I think
needs
it
to
was a
just hang it
character
up.
from The Wall that he was
Okay, yeah.
portraying. That's what I think it
It
was.
was like
And
in really poor it was like in Germany, which like isn't that like illegal?
I thought it
Read the
was.
room, Roger. Read the room.
Yeah, but,
But nonetheless, that is like you said, I think that that's a really, really good example of a not terrible use for virtual reality,
it'll be
but,
used
like,
for terrible things, though.
it
Don't
will
worry. Don't worry. That's the purpose of pretty much every technology. When you think about it,
technology,
every
yeah.
technology that's presented to us, I mean, really the internet, what do you think it was for our convenience? No, they wanted to get you addicted to pornography. That was that was its whole purpose. To get to demasculinize men, get everybody addicted to porn, I mean, maybe not the sole purpose, but it was definitely introduced to us to ultimately create a digital prison, and that's one element of the digital prison, the Pornhub.
In virtual reality. Well, the point I was making about virtual reality in, just like as part of what you were saying about like the garden and everything, I just think that we need to cultivate an offline life. Like we need to choose as human beings, like if we don't want to get in the pod, as Colin and I joke around a lot about, like if we don't want to get in the pod, we want real humanity, we want to take the red pill. Like we have to cultivate an offline existence. And for a lot of young people, like online is their existence. Like that is their life. Like my husband's somebody that's never had Facebook. He's never had Instagram. He's literally never gone on Instagram. He's never
How is he
even
going to see
gone on.
Elizabeth Hurley's latest swimsuit that she's really? How is he going to
I
keep
know.
up to
How
date on
is
that?
he? I know. It's so I'm gonna tell him that. Be like, I can't believe you haven't seen Elizabeth Hurley's.
Yeah, yeah. There's certain things that you
I
need to
don't
be kept
allow
up to date
him.
on.
I yeah, there are but like he doesn't do any of this. Whereas you take a younger person and like that's their whole existence revolves around what they're doing online. And like I said, I think we just need to and I think that there's really, really good benefits to connecting to people online and having that. I mean, like I said, like we text through technology. We're doing this right now. Um, there's a lot of good that's come out. Like I've seen a lot of awesome things come out of connecting via social media. And to me, I see it as a tool, but there's a lot of evil actors out there. And there's a lot of darkness that exists within us that we can give into in social media. And I have to say for myself too, like definitely, like I'm not always like I've not always used social media in a healthy way or it's had healthy benefits to my life. It's definitely taken away from my life in some aspects in the past, you know? And so but what I'm saying is I think that if that's where we're moving towards and we don't and we want to reject it, like we need to foster this. Like we need to have things outside of being in technology and on the computer. And I even wonder too, like I was saying to my husband, like he is dealing with guys at work. And my brother also is dealing with like some of these kids that like overnight, the guys that they're having come in to work are so bad, like with technology. Like they're constantly they have no focus. They're always on their phones. Like my brother said this, and my husband has dealt with this. And it really, like, they've had young guys, but it seems like overnight, and even my little brother is only 21, and he was telling me how bad the kids just a couple years younger than him are. And I really think that I wonder if a lot of those kids were the first generation to really have individual devices since the time they were like could can remember. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like my little brother still he didn't have his own tablet. He didn't have his own phone to play with. He had a television and the kid never watched television. So like yeah, he had a screen in his life, but it was not an individual device. And I wonder if the kids right now coming in the workforce always had like their own individual devices to keep them, you know, to keep their attention. Do you understand what I'm saying? And what I'm really concerned about is then how is that affecting our development of our brains if you're always relying on a device for your to capture your attention, to make decisions for you, to tell you which road to take when you're driving, to like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you're never bored. You're never lost in your own thoughts, and you never really have to hone how to you don't have to remember how to spell things because it spells it for you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I wonder, like, how is that going to affect the development of the brains of our future children and the generations right now?
I mean, one would have to assume that it's going to affect the development of our brains in an adverse, negative way. I think that you hit the nail on the head earlier when you mentioned how really these devices and the internet unto itself, it's supposed to be used as a tool. It's a tool for us to sit here and connect and record a podcast and keep in touch, and for things like that, what a blessing. But also, what do you think the percentages of people who are using their smartphones as a tool versus their smartphones using them? I
Yeah.
think that the higher percentage is people who are being used by their devices rather than them using their devices.
Well, yeah, we're all left to our own devices, literally, at this point in time. Like, we
Yeah.
are all on our own devices, operate in our own little worlds. And like you said, a lot of times it owns you. It's kind of like a lot of different things. You own so many, you have a car, a fancy car, and you have a big house that you have a big mortgage for, and you buy all these things. And eventually, all those things just own you. And as you said, like you kind of need to master your own soul. You need to master your own existence and make sure that like you said, that those things don't control you. But for a lot of people it's the inverse, where they don't have any master over it, and it does control them. But Colin and I are working very hard to not doom scroll this year. So we hope that everyone will join us on this journey to cultivate a more offline life. That is what we are striving towards. And I did this week. I went for a walk in the snow, and I thought to myself, like, oh, I'd love to take a picture and like post this online. And I thought to myself, like, why? Like, who cares? Like the more and more you think about it, you're like, nobody cares,
Yeah, nobody
right?
cares about the fajitas that
Cares.
the waiter just put in front. Like, I'm gonna eat them. Why do I need to take a picture of the fajitas
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
post it on Instagram to get a dopamine rush from the views and the likes? It's all so stupid, and it
It
never
is.
should have
It's
came to fruition, quite frankly.
like you said, it all really is just like a cheap dopamine rush. And it is fun, not fun, but I enjoy hearing like older people that are I particularly know someone who is very mature in age, who is obsessed with the number of impressions and likes that they receive on their social media.
Is Donald
And
Trump? Is that who you're?
might as well be. I'm sure he is too. He's probably like, I don't understand how Nikki Haley got more likes than me on that video.
I picture him kind of like that.
Yeah, Trump probably does. He's probably like, I don't get this Mr. Beast guy. My videos are so much better.
Who is this
He's
Andrew Tate?
confused. Who is this Andrew Tate? Exactly. He's so angry. He's like, this interview wasn't that good. What about me? But but it's interesting to see like an older person be like a teenager and just sit there and be like, well, that didn't get as many impressions, and just completely swayed by like the number of likes something gets. Like, well, that wasn't really that great, and that didn't really catch on, and that's not. Who cares? Like, if you thought it was good, who gives a crap what other people think? Like, why are you so hung up at such an advanced age on the number of likes you receive? Like, this is honestly so sad. It's just sad that people measure themselves by such a silly number. But here, that's where we're at. That's where life is. And like I said, it really is so silly. The more the less you engage with it, the more absurd it becomes. Really, truly, truly. And that's where I feel like like you said, as a tool, I have a lot of family that I share stuff with, and people I connect with that maybe live around the country. And I try to be just really upbeat and just encouraging when I post on social media. And I hope that that's what it comes across as. But I certainly I just don't worry that much. Like, I don't even think about that, like the number of likes. You know what I'm saying? But that's
Do you
because I don't
ever
get that many.
do you ever look back? Do you know how, like, if you log into Facebook, for example, Facebook will show you something that you posted 10 years ago?
Well, I actually deleted my old account, so I don't get those, but I know what
Smart.
you're talking about. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
I get some of these notifications and oh my god, just like 10 years ago
So
even.
cringe.
Oh, so cringe. Like, who is this That's why anytime if I'm posting on there anymore, it's gonna be about like Creed or No Doubt or
Mm.
these things that are near and
Just
dear.
like fun.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
about
not so
fun. It's gonna be about
serious.
music and guitars and
Yeah.
bands and movies and shit like
Well,
that.
yeah, I have to say, like, I am really lame because I deleted my Facebook like years, like when I was in college and got off of it. And then when I was working in radio, I kind of got back into it for my radio, like for the radio show. And I started using Instagram at the same time too. And then I kind of just used it with like family and stuff. And but I actually recreate, not even reactivate it, like recreated a whole new Facebook like
This is the new
like
Karen.
profile. This is a new
Karen
new Karen.
2.0.
Karen
Zero
2.0.
cringe.
Yes, zero cringe. But I got back on. So like I'm really pathetic. Like that's like really lame. Like you beat Facebook for like years on end. And then you were like, no, I'm gonna come back into the void. I'm gonna come back into come back to the swamp that is social media. And but in my defense, it was like right after I got sick and I was highly medicated at the time. No, I'm kidding. It wasn't really, it was more like I became like Pollyanna, and it was like right before all the lockdowns. And like I saw all these posts my brother made and how encouraging everybody was about when I was going through my transplant. And I was like, that's so wonderful. I just love
Meanwhile, Colin's complaining.
everybody.
Colin's just like, "Oh my god, can't wait for this transplant thing to be over. I can't get in touch with her."
You're like,
Oh,
can't you just like get a new organ? Like, what's the big
yeah, like
deal?
let's speed this thing up. Jesus.
But so I was in this like Pollyanna kind of mode where I was like, I just love everybody. Let me just friend everyone I went to high school with and everyone I've
Ugh.
ever known for the rest of my life. And then within like 3 months, I'm like, is she fighting with her? Is she posting about? And then I was like the same despicable creature I always
Yeah,
was. But for a little
despicable
while
me.
there, despicable Karen. For a little while there, I was like this really upstanding individual who just wanted to spread love and light. And within a couple months, I was just that despicable creature that just wanted to be like, oh my gosh, are they posting it? Is that what? What is that picture? What is she doing?
See, I
Are
was
they talking?
deactivated. I didn't delete
Oh,
my
you were
profile, but
okay.
I was deactivated for a number of years. But
For
then
years. And then what happened? Why did you reemerge from your cocoon?
I wanted to sell a guitar and Facebook Marketplace. I
Oh,
had to get on there. And plus, if there's certain groups on there that, like, for example, if you're looking for like other musicians to play with in the area, there's like local
yeah.
musicians in your
Yeah.
area, or if you need to sell stuff, Marketplace is always I found it to be a pretty easy way to sell what I needed to sell. So again, using it as a tool, that's using it as a tool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times I'll just log on just to go on to like the transplant forums because like when I went through like a really serious complication with my liver transplant, and really the only thing I got assurance or information on, it was kind of it I would call it a rare complication of liver transplantation is what happened with me. And I could find some information online, but the information I found on these niche Facebook groups was so much more helpful to me and reassuring and made me feel like I wasn't the only person going through it. And like I didn't really connect that deep personally with these people, but just reading their posts reading what they went through, I was like, okay, like I'm not alone. Like this is kind of normal what's happening with me. Whereas like when I just went on Google and read some really like basic dry Mayo Clinic articles, it didn't give me that same personal touch and that connection that I did through social media. So like you said, there are definitely I think if you're struggling with social media, like I think you need to examine yourself. Like you really don't need to hate on social media. You really need to examine, check yourself. You know what I mean? Like, and I say that to myself too. I point that finger at you, but I point two back at myself. And have to say that, I have to examine myself sometimes too.
And just to go back to the primary for a second, I'm sure you heard Nikki Haley's statement on how she essentially wants everyone to have a government issued ID to
For
log
the
into the
internet.
internet. So that's where it's headed. They want to know your every click, your every move.
They already do, Nikki. Like, what the heck is she even talking about? Like, they know everything we're doing anyways. We were going to talk about this article. My other computer just died, but the Treasury and the Feds had asked the banks to flag purchases that related to Trump, MAGA, the Bible, and some other items to look for extremists within the US. So it's like we already are under examination. They already know every move we're making. They have all of our cookies, they have all of our data. They've taken all this data to construct artificial intelligence. Like
But they
we
want
know
more. They don't
they
want you to have
want,
a VPN anymore either. That's another
yeah,
thing that you're going to
yeah.
see come under fire
I guess
soon.
I guess you're right. So it's like it's not enough that they pretty much are watching every single move we make and know everything that's going on, but they also need us to have like a little registered um I think we need to be registered to go to McDonald's more than we need to be registered to go online. I think that's more of a public health crisis than the internet. Like that's more of an issue.
You
You know what
know,
I'm saying?
one of my first acts, if I were to become president, is I would change what I was talking about earlier, the dietary recommendations. I would lower the amount of recommended carbs like significantly to like 100 to 150 grams of carbohydrates a day.
Not processed carbs, yeah,
Right, not
yeah.
processed carbs, carbs from whole grains and fruit and things
Well,
like that.
you know who's gonna do that, right?
RFK Jr.?
Michelle
Oh,
Obama.
she did have
Remember?
that Get Moving campaign or whatever it
She
was
was
as
all
pres
about my brother still hates her to this day because she removed the french fries from his high school, lunchroom. So he's a vendetta. So maybe it'll backfire, like, they'll run Michelle Obama, but all the young people remember that their french fries were revoked, and they'll hate
I
Michelle
remember they took
Obama.
away the soda machines in high school. I remember that was like a big deal. I was never a soda drinker,
You went
but
to a private school though, right? So it's like
I did. I
that
went to an
wasn't
evil private Catholic school full of
a Latin mass.
yeah, full of future MAGA extremists. Um
Well, I have to say with you, Michelle, I think we should wrap it up in a minute here before. So you think that Michelle Obama is going to be the candidate?
yeah, I
Like
really
they'll
do.
miss
I yeah,
Biden.
I I don't think it's going to be Newsom. You see, that's not going to work because if it's Newsom as the front runner, well, wait a second. Kamala Harris, she's a woman of color. They can't, what are they going to put Gavin Newsom over Kamala Harris? They can't really do that. That doesn't really fit with their agenda. So they're gonna have to bring in a woman. I don't think it's gonna be Hillary. I know people always say that it's gonna be her and she's gonna run
So
again.
no,
No,
never.
I think I
She would do it in a heartbeat, but they don't
no
want
no
her.
Barry O calls the shots in
Yeah.
DC. Believe me. And I think that they're gonna get old Joe to say that he's got like the shingles or something in March. That's what they should use, by the way. It should be something like, like the shingles is a good thing because that's pretty painful. I mean, I had it once when I was 16.
Yes,
I
it's
couldn't really
horrible.
concentrate on anything. I couldn't be president for sure. So
Yes.
so Joe's gonna say he's got a bout of the shingles and he can't surf anymore. And then
And
that's
Michelle
when
will come on the scene.
Michelle, she's gonna come in on the horse waving the flag of democracy, and she's gonna say, well, they're gonna frame it as I don't want to do this, but I have no choice because didn't you see the interview she gave recently about how
Yeah,
she's
she
very
just gave the
concerned about the country in this
yeah,
election?
she's
They
very
already have the groundwork
concerned.
laid there.
Yeah, they're definitely I believe that Michelle will reluctantly do it, but I feel like she ultimately doesn't have a choice also. So I think that that is where I believe Michelle does not necessarily want to throw her hat in the ring, but as you said, she doesn't necessarily call the shots and she might have to get into this. She might have no other choice. And to her ego, if she won, she would be the first female president. So, in a sense, this could be something that does appeal to her a little bit. You might not want to do it, but there might be a part of you that thinks, well, at least my name's in the history books. And I could see her, like I said, she ultimately might not really have a choice. So she might just have to do this. So we shall see.
One final question before we wrap this podcast up in a neat little package. I'm getting the vibe, people often say like this is the last election, this is it. I really do believe that we are at a very dangerous point, where no matter what the result of this election is in November, half the country's not going to accept it. And what I mean by not accept it, I don't just mean like post memes on social media. I mean, I just have this feeling like, and again, I pray for peace, and I hope that everything works out in the best interests of humanity and the country as a whole. But I don't know, this feels like a Texas pulls out of the union sort of moment where we're headed. Those are my feelings, my empathic feelings about this
Well,
year.
well, like you said, there could be chaos whether Biden wins or Michelle Obama. There could be chaos if Trump wins. There could be chaos if one of the candidates does not receive enough electoral college points, to get to that 270. So there are a lot of different outcomes that could cause a lot of chaos from different groups. And not to mention, there's a lot of agitators out there. I mean, we saw this with January 6th, where whether they were inside actors or they were outside actors, but there's a lot of people that are revved up, they're polarized. And I think really what mostly puts the country at risk is that a lot of people don't feel like their voice is being heard, and that frustration and also the unaffordability of life right now for a lot of people has many people on the margins. And then when they're hearing all this divisive rhetoric, which is coming out from the right and the left, that makes you feel so frustrated and so angry. You feel like you have no outlet and you feel like you have no voice. Therefore, you see days like January 6th take place. So, yeah, and I do feel like there is a lot of I know a lot of people don't like to say this and they act like people on the left and people on the right are being so they're trying to vilify them. But there is a lot of rhetoric and there is a lot of media that is really unhelpful. And I'm not saying that it needs to be stopped. I think that we should continue to have free speech. And I think I encourage more speech. I encourage
Podcaster calls for the strangling of the press. that,
Yes,
that's what
but
that
I'm
is.
saying but I'm no, but I'm saying that there's a lot of podcasts out there, and there's a lot of shows out there that have you think that you're fighting this war every day when it's like, you're just going to work at Kohl's. Like, you're not,
Yeah,
you know what
you're
I'm
not Mel Gibson in The
saying?
Patriot, that scene at the end where he has the flag and he's
Yeah,
running.
yeah.
He's, "No,
Like
turn around, go."
like, you're going to work at Home Depot and you're like, "We're fighting a war," and it's like, "No, like,
"Hold the line."
you don't want to fight a war." You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want a revolution here. We don't want a civil war. Like, don't you understand what that really means? You understand? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, no, like that's not. And I think that people are not, they're doing themselves a disservice when all they do is listen to media that is swayed one way or the other, and they completely just live in an echo chamber and just get so much more radicalized to one side, whether that's left or right. But as I say all of that, there are people, there's a lot, like you said, there could be a lot of chaos just because what the right sees as what is real and true and fact and lies is completely opposite of what the left sees as the truth.
It's a
Do you understand what I'm saying?
population with two different realities. Imagine that, a divided
Exactly.
population living in two different realities. I mean, that's not gonna that's not healthy,
Yeah, I believe that
right?
that really is that, that's what's most dangerous. And I believe that the only way forward is to understand that, like, we are all human beings. We are all, we all love, we all die, we all bleed, we all breathe, and to have compassion for those around us. Like, if you don't agree with someone, they're not your enemy, like that's not, that person's not your enemy. You should pray for Joe Biden. You should pray for Barack Obama. You should pray for Putin and
Pray for
Zelensky
Klaus
and Klaus
Schwab.
Schwab.
Pray for Yuval
Exactly.
Noah Harari.
Exactly. I completely
I'm gonna
agree
do
with
that
I
tonight. I'm
yeah,
gonna say, "Lord
yes.
Jesus, please put it in the heart of Klaus Schwab to see the
The
error of
light.
his ways and
He
embrace humanity."
he did have, Javier Milei, the newly elected president of Argentina, speak. They did have the Heritage Foundation president speak, and they both, completely eviscerated the World Economic Forum and all of their policies. So I know that that's not their aim. Their invitations were more likely to just pretend to give an olive branch to the right, but nonetheless, there's no telling. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are listening to these podcasts and listening to these shows, and they're just like, okay, like Klaus Schwab's coming to take over, and we're doing this and we're doing that. And for all we know, China and Russia have a completely different end game here that will steamroll over the World Economic Forum. I mean, everybody, all the Christians thought that the European Union was surely the beginning and was surely rolling out the New World Order, that we were going to see the 10 nations that were going to be ruled by the Antichrist. And now we see Brexit. We see France trying to get out of the European Union. We see these divisions taking place. We see this war with Ukraine. So, like, we don't see the future. We don't know the future. Like, God tells us in the Bible, there are prophecies, there are things we know. He is going to win. Truth is going to prevail. Christ is going to return. But that said, we don't know exactly how the chess pieces are gonna go. We don't know those things. So I think the most important thing for us to do, like I said, is to understand that, people, the 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 transgender person that is that is in the Biden administration is not your enemy. You should have compassion on that person. You shouldn't just, like, saying that trying to re-educate your children is something you should take very seriously. I think that you should be at the school board meetings and you should be speaking up about it, but I don't necessarily think that you need to feel like you're in a war against these people. I think you need to pray for these people, and I think most importantly, you need to get yourself right with God. I think that that's the number one thing you should be doing. Pray for those that curse you, and examine yourself, examine your heart, and I think you're going to see, I think that's the only way to see real change is to do that. But
I concur, and I was just going to add that I think perhaps there are some signs of us being on the cusp of a new renaissance in humanity, and I think that the Coachella announcement was one of the signs of
Oh,
that. With
yes,
no
yeah.
doubt reuniting since last show they played was 2015. They're going to be at Coachella, so that's a very positive sign. Probably the most positive sign of the future that I've seen in about a decade, actually, was that announcement.
Yeah.
My
Well,
twin
it's like
flame, Gwen, just completely vindicating herself and saying, Colin, it's going to be okay. Don't you worry about a thing. I'm going to
exactly,
play
it's
with the
like,
boys again. Good
who
times are coming
cares?
back. They're coming back. Good times are
Well,
coming
it's
back.
like, who cares if Trump wins or Biden wins? No doubt's getting back together. Like,
Yeah.
get your priorities straight, okay? Like, that's what Travis and Taylor probably getting married this year. Like, these are the things. I mean, hello, have you seen Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez together? Like, love is alive. Like, these are the
Well,
things that really matter, people. Turn off Alex Jones, turn off Joe Rogan, turn off, I don't even know, insert show Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, and put on Call Your Daddy. Like, that's where we need to go. They will
put
lead us to the future.
put on go dig out your Tragic Kingdom CD, one of the best albums of the 90s, sold well over 10 million copies in the US, and give that a spin, and everything is going to be okay. We're headed in a new and exciting direction. We're going to get through this, and we'll be here with all of you each and every week to help guide you, to help you navigate the I don't know if we're really helping anybody navigate, but we're going to say that anyway, that we're going to help you
Yeah.
navigate the waters of these uncertain times in our world. And Karen, any final thoughts? Like Jerry Springer, he would always give the final
Final thoughts.
the final thoughts.
I'm not the father. That's more Maury, though, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. I have no final thoughts. My thoughts are yours.
Alrighty, well, in that case, click the subscribe button on YouTube, Rumble, follow us on X, and we'll be back here once again next week with another fun-filled, jam-packed edition of the Re-Education Camp podcast. Have a great week, everyone.